Hi everyone, Stepan here. Today I'm going to do something I've been putting off for a month almost, and that's covering the worst tournament I've ever played and probably four toughest chess days of my life. So yeah, that's the Rabac Open. I'm going to go over all 7 games in one video because I'm trying to, think about the games and the tournament as little as possible. Before I start, in the first comment below you can find the recording schedule and the streaming schedule so that you know when I'll be doing stuff. I'm working on a long-term solution for a recording and streaming schedule which is going to be live next week. But for now, I hope this helps. I'd also like to thank everybody who's been watching my first stream on Sunday. You guys have been great. Thank you for understanding and for putting up with all the technical problems I've had, horrible internet and the bad mic. I've ordered a new mic which is due on Thursday and it's going to be a good one as opposed to this old thing I've been using for 2 years. And also, I'm going to have quicker internet by Thursday. So the first stream, even though I first planned to do it on Wednesday, is going to be on Thursday in the afternoon. So you can find the schedule below. Okay, so let me give you an intro to the Rabac Open. So in December, this was played from January 4th January 2nd to January 6th, I think. Okay, so those dates. So in December I've played 2 tournaments. Zagreb Open was the first one and that was the best tournament of my life. I had a huge plus score, earned about 45 points and that was my biggest plus score ever. Then in Zadar, which was played the day after Zagreb finished, I lost 20 points. Bad tournament, not nearly as bad as this one. But yeah, my rating then was 1935 when I came to Rabac. I'm just going to say that now, as of February 1st, my rating is 1893. So I'll just type it in here so that you can see. So my rating should be 1935 FIDE, or it was for all of these games in the January list. Now my rating has dropped for 42 points. So 1893, and psychologically that was a huge crush for me. I was absolutely devastated. I couldn't function normally for a week after I came back. It was really hard, and yeah, I think I've managed to come to terms with it, and I've managed to come up with some ways to cope with such losses, and I think I'm going to be stronger next time. Now I'm going to take you through my thoughts during the tournament. It's all very vivid still, even though it's been a month, as I go through the games. So the first game was played against a very young player. I doubt he's older than 10, 11 or 12, something like that. Extremely talented, 1500 FIDE for now, but he's going to be much stronger. By the age of 15, he's going to be over 2000, I'm sure. So it's the first game. In the first game, I could have been paired against somebody from the lower part of the list, so much lower rated or much higher rated. I got Max Poljan, a very talented young player, knight of 6, knight of 3, and I played the Benoni defense, or I tried to enter the Benoni. He can still decline it, go into the English or some sort of different openings, but he complied with d5, and after e6, c4, we now have the modern Benoni. ED5, CD5, D6, the main lines. Here E4 is not possible, of course, because it loses the pawn, so knight C3, and G6, E4, and here since he was really young, I have to admit that I wanted to test an idea I've been working on, which I know isn't good according to theory. According to theory, in this position, bishop to g7 is the main move and the best move. a6 is also a very good move, preparing b5, provoking a4. And I played a move that's not good and that should be much better for white after queen a4 check, even queen b3 or bishop to e2 is kind of slow, yeah. But queen a4 check basically should be better for white. But I wanted to try and play this move because the idea is if I can take on f3, then knight to d2, knight c4 is not possible. He played h3, which is good. I mean, bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, and now I'm in trouble. If I play carelessly, then this could be very dangerous. Bishop g5, and I'm already in a lot of trouble. He's going to continue with knight b5, and the position is not easy at all. So I had to be careful. So in this position, I needed to wait with bishop g7, even though that's the only move I want to play, so that I can meet bishop g5 with bishop e7. So I played a6, stopping knight b5, provoking a4. And now bishop g7 is fine because he doesn't have knight b5, and I'm okay. I'm going to cover these games in less detail than usually because I want to focus on the psychological aspects of the tournament, and I want to forget these games. So excuse me, the next Road to GM games in the series are going to be covered one by one and in detail. Okay, so bishop f4, which is okay. Castles, queen g3, which is a blunder because now I have knight h5, and from this position on, black is simply much better. And since he doesn't have a way to push through e5, which is the main idea for white in the Benoni, and I don't have any problems, I can even play knight d7, which I played because if he takes, he now loses the queen. Since he doesn't have any counterplay, I just have a monster bishop. My d6 pawn is not a weakness, and I basically have a queenside pawn majority, which I can use. Queen d2 was played, rook e8, bishop to d3, c4. C4 is a good move. He can't really take it. If he takes it, bishop takes knight is a possibility taking on e4, but even deadlier is just knight c5. This is a common pawn sacrifice in the Benoni, and this position is just overwhelmingly good. c4, he played bishop to c2. As I said, he is a very good player for his age. Knight c5 anyway. f3, and now the position is really ugly. I played queen b6 to stop him from castling and to threaten b2. If he castles, it's very scary because knight takes check and queen f2 is covered by the knight. So he played rook a2, which, I mean, defends b2, but his king is in the center. f5, queen to e2, rook a to c8, king to d1, and now f takes e4. I started cashing out on my advantage. F takes e4, and now a dubious decision by me, but that seemed like the easiest way to win, just taking on c3, b takes c3, and knight to d3. He can't really take the pawn because his position is too open. He's never surviving that. So a5 was played, which I understand. Queen to b5, king to d2, and now rook to f8, and it's basically over. I'm threatening rook to f2. The only way for him to save the position is to take the knight, but then the queen loses all of its squares. I'm going to double up my stuff on the f-file and win. He played rook f1, which is an obvious blunder because now I win by force. Rook takes f1, queen takes f1, and rook to f8. Whatever he does, he basically has to lose the queen or get checkmated, because in this position I have the move queen to c5. So once I check on f2 with my rook, the king is going to be cut off from e3 after queen c5, and he either gives up the queen for the rook or gets checkmated. He played queen b1, and after rook f2 he resigned. If he goes back, then I win the queen. If he goes forward, then I win with checkmate. So that was the first round, and in round 2, I faced a 2100 player, 21 something, and I'd actually prepared for this round. We have the open Tarash after c5. I knew that he takes with the queen. I'm not going to go through the opening moves. There is a video on this variation, and a variation which I find really good for white. Knight gf3, cd4, bishop c4. This is all theory. White regains the pawn later. And now we have a sort of early endgame here, a position which is fairly simple to play. One advantage for white is the 3-2 pawn majority, which is going to be easier to utilize than black's 4-3, but that's really nothing in this position, and it's basically equal. White stands slightly better. a6, a4, all of these moves were played a tempo. a6 is kind of weird, but I'd actually expected that. Bishop to d7, bishop f4, a5 was interesting, but I didn't want to weaken b5. And if he came back with the knight, if he could come back to c6 with the knight, then my pawn could be in trouble. So bishop f4, rook to c8, bishop to b3. And now my plan is to go c3 to solidify my knight and give my bishop a better diagonal. Bishop c5, rook a to d1, castles, knight to f3, rook fd8. As I said, a fairly equal position, knight e5, bishop d8, c3, nothing is going on. And unfortunately for white, the open Tarrasch, unless black goes for the variation where he has an IQP, is a very drawing opening. Knight e4, well, now introducing some threats, but I can now take, and bishop to c2. The knight is now forced to go back, and I have favorably exchanged pieces. And this is the critical position in which I can do several things, or I can do nothing. I can do nothing with f3, I can do nothing with h3, I can do nothing with knight c4, I can do nothing with knight f3, I can do nothing with bishop g5, I can do nothing with bishop to b3, I can do nothing with rook to e1. I can also play rook to d1, offer a trade of rooks. He doesn't have anything better than to accept. But here I miscalculated, and this blunder was just horrible. So I played the move b4, and b4 is an excellent move if he goes back. And if he goes back, I go c4, and I'm fairly close to winning because I'm going to shut this bishop out of the game. And basically I've started pushing my majority, fairly close to winning with great play, but on my level slightly better. But after b4 he just goes to e7, which I'd completely missed, and now I played b4 fairly quickly, I have to admit. I was really confident, and I got a mindset of I can't lose this position, I could only be slightly better, blah blah blah. Missing bishop e7. Now the point is if c4, bishop takes b4, loses, so I can't play that. So now whatever I do, he's going to play rook c8, knight e4, and win. And that's it. Or rook c8, knight d5, and win my pawn. There's nothing I can do. I continued bishop b3, which seemed the trickiest, and rook c8, rook c1, knight e4. I have nothing here. I tried a kind of complicated variation where I give up my a4 pawn, but that doesn't work. Bishop a4. And now bishop to d3. Another trick, thinking that he might be afraid of taking on c3 because of the pin, but knight takes c3, bishop to d2. There's a fairly simple solution here. Bishop takes b4, and that's it. I'm just a million pawns down and completely lost. So an equal game which I lost because of my stupidity. I made one mistake, but such a big mistake. And the funny thing is, after you create one weakness or lose one pawn in an equal position, then it's just over. If the queens are on the board, if two pairs of rooks are on the board, it's not such a big weakness. Here, it's a huge weakness. So that's how I lost round 2. Coming into round 3, where I faced a 1600 rated player, I was really upset because when a tournament starts, and on day 2 in Rabac, all days except the first day had doubled rounds. If you start badly on day 2, then you are upset coming into the afternoon game, and you don't really feel that great. And also when you face a low-rated opponent who is an extremely talented player, then you're upset. So I'm black. d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6. We have the semi-Slav. I didn't want to risk anything. He plays the anti-Meran with queen c2. Bishop d6. A few main moves are played here. Bishop to e2 is weird. Bishop d3 is better. dc4, bc4, and now e5. And this is a position I know, actually. I've had this on my board when I was preparing the semi-Slav a year ago. Here he castles, rook to e8, a4, and now e4. And after e4, knight to d2, I'm slightly better. And I have a lot of space. More importantly, I have a huge kingside potential, attacking potential. And the idea here was, the idea behind rook e8, apart from e4, was knight f8, knight g6, opening up my other bishop, and that's what I played. And here he played the move c5, which I'd regarded as a bad move at the time, but upon a closer look, this is an extremely powerful move. Bishop c7, and now he plays a5. And a friend of mine who played the tournament with me asked, well, why didn't you just play a6 to stop all the counterplay? And I had no answer. Obviously, a6 is a threat. So before doing anything, I should just go a6 and I'm okay. Instead of that, I blundered. The correct move was either a6, which is solid, or just knight g6 and getting my pieces in. And when I get my knight to h4, then things get really, really, really messy, and I have a lot of attacking potential. Instead of that, I blundered. And I blundered 3 moves down, which is nothing, and you're going to see why. I played the move bishop g4, which is a horrible blunder. The reason why I wanted to play the move bishop g4 is if this bishop is off the board, then bishop takes h2 and game over. Knight g4 check, king g3, queen g5, and he can resign. It's a great gift made very powerful with the pawn on e5. So after bishop g4, if he takes, I'm better. And if he takes, I actually play bishop h2, king h2, knight here, and he can probably defend, but in a real game, 2 humans playing hardly. Bishop g4, and the problem with the move is that he plays knight d takes e5, e4. And now I have 2 pieces hanging. If I take the bishop, he takes my knight with check, so I can't do that. So I have to take on e4. And I basically have given him a pawn. But I've seen all of this before bishop g4, and here was my calculation. Knight takes, bishop takes, queen to h4, and for some reason, the only move I was looking at was bishop to h3. And after bishop to h3, my position is great. Just knight g5, and the game is over. I'm threatening knight f3, I'm threatening knight h3, and later on this happens. What I'd missed, what's incredible, is the move h3. And black is losing. Believe it or not, black's position is just lost. He has too much queenside play, way more space, a solid central extra pawn, and from here on I played like a lunatic. Now again, a6 should have been played. I played rook a8 and now a6, but I played it for a specific reason. I knew that my position was lost, and the young gentleman I was playing, I'm sorry if this is wrong, but I believe he is 14, 15 or 16, is extremely talented, much stronger than his rating. He is in fact much stronger than I am. And if my rating was 1935, objectively he played like a 2100 player. He played a really good game. Okay, so here I started complicated matters. Knight g6, a takes b7, and knight to f4. Now, of course, the sacrifice is unsound, but it's not clear why. So if he takes the knight, I take with the queen, and now things are complicated for him because of my dark squared bishop, something like here, here, and there's a lot of play in the position. I could hold a draw with some tricks. But of course, he doesn't do that. He just takes on c6, and I have to sacrifice another piece. Bishop takes c6, knight h3 check, pawn takes, queen takes, and now a fairly simple move, f3, defending the checkmate on h2. If he goes f4, then rook takes e3 is a bit more counterplay. After f3, I have nothing. Rook takes e3, queen to g2, queen to h4. A completely mad game by me. Nothing works here. I'm just lost. And rook to b3. In this position, he has to play a move after which I would have resigned. And in this position, I have absolutely nothing. He's threatening to just move the bishop away from c3 and queen. And he is inevitably about to queen a couple of pawns. He can also do this and just queen. The move he has to play is bishop to d4. After bishop to d4, I have no counterplay. I'm resigning immediately. The key idea is bishop e3 check. Instead of that, he played d6. I'm sorry, rook to b3. He played d6. And I just played bishop to e3 check. And now, all of a sudden, black is better because he has to cover either with the knight or with the rook, otherwise well, he has to, or with the queen. And once he does, then I play rook takes b2. And now there's this annoying pin and triple pressure and ideas of knight f4, and it's not simple. So at this point I was better, but I had a minute on the clock. Rook a8. And here I played bishop takes c5, which is a mistake, but it's not a huge mistake. What I should have played here is the very, very simple g6 and just creating some luft. The variations are vastly complicated, so I'd advise you to look at them yourself. It would take an hour just to cover this game. But I played bishop takes c5, rook d8 check, queen takes d8, and here's the problem. Queen to g4. After queen to g4, I'm just busted. The best move is... What was the best move? I think the best move was rook takes. And okay, I'm actually going to turn the engine on for a second here because I don't remember my analysis, and this is very complicated. There was a variation we were looking at, and we used the engine because we couldn't figure it out during the tournament. So yeah, okay, queen takes isn't too scary because I have this. And yeah, I don't think anybody would give up a knight just like that. But let's say he plays a normal human move. What's a normal move? This position is so complicated that I can't figure out what a normal move is. So as you can see, I could have taken on d6, which is weird. Queen takes d6. It never crossed my mind. Him taking my knight would be horrible because I just take the bishop. Instead of that, I played bishop takes d6, and I hope you can find the crushing finish for him. Pause the video here if you want. Queen c8, and after bishop c7, a wonderful move by my opponent, rook to d1. It's like a puzzle from a book. It's a wonderful finish. Obviously, there's nothing I can do. I can't take the rook because my queen is pinned. I can't take the queen because he queens. I can't move my queen because he takes, and it's over. Yeah, and after having come back from his mistake after d6 and then lost, I was devastated. So here I am, 1 out of 3, losing already probably 15 points. Coming into round 4, I'm playing another lower rated opponent, 1700, another extremely talented young player. Again, I'm going to guess, but I guess he was 15 or 16. And again, very good, much better than his rating. We have the Italian, and I played the normal classical gioco piano with c3, d3, bishop b3, d6, castles. All of this is normal. Knight g4 is also okay, but rook e2. And now he plays king h8, and the idea is clear. He wants to go f5, and I need to stop that, so I go h3, trying to place his knight on f6. But he goes knight h6, and now taking would be suicidal, moving my knight and taking. I did play knight f1 to see what he does. After f5, I'm sorry. After f5, if I take, I'm probably better according to the engine, but probably lost, practically. So here I needed to create counterplay. This game I analyzed for a while, and I liked how I played. I did not use the engine. I only used the engine for round 3, which was insane. So d4, f takes e4, of course, rook takes e4, and bishop f5. After bishop f5, I just go back to e1. The key idea behind d4 was to blunt his bishop. I want to blunt his bishop and basically try to have a more active position with my bishop, my 2 knights, and I should be slightly better. Queen f6, oppa, I'm sorry. I don't know how I did that. Queen f6, bishop to g5, and in this position queen to g6 was played. And now I played queen d2, which I thought was a very, very tricky move. His only move here is knight to f7, otherwise I'm threatening to simply win the e5 pawn. If he takes, I should still be better. I'm also, more importantly, threatening to simply go knight h4, and after knight h4, well, he would have to keep defending the bishop, but then I can take on h6, actually win a pawn. So let's say he blunders at knight h4, queen to f7, bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, and I could decide whether to go for the bishop or not. I probably would have played this to continue with knight g3. So he has to go knight f7, and now rook a to d1. I'm just reinforcing d4, h6, and now this is a pawn sacrifice I've calculated for activity. I allowed h6, bishop h4, and him trying to trap my my pieces, my bishop, and win a pawn, because I thought I will have a ton of activity on the light square. So bishop h4 obviously allows bishop takes h3. Bishop takes h3, bishop to g3, and now he has to waste time moving the bishop with bishop f5, but now knight h4, queen f6, knight f5, queen f5, and bishop to c2. And I thought for the h-pawn, this has to be more than enough. Look at his light squares. And I was pretty happy with my play here. So after queen f6, I had a much better continuation than what I'd played. I actually messed the position up at this point. I should have continued with trying to include my knight into the game, or simply continuing with queen to d3, trying to provoke g6. The problem is that he has the move knight to g5 for the moment, but then after bishop to h4, it's not that simple. If he goes e4, then I can take, and well, maybe I can't. Takes. Yeah, I can't take. Okay, sorry. If he goes e4, I would have to reroute my queen. But what's the downside of e4 is that his bishop is now a completely dead piece. So after queen to f6, I had better options. Queen d3 was probably better. I played d5, which is not a good move. d5 opens the bishop up. So from a positional standpoint, that's just wrong. Knight to e7, knight to e3. I wanted to include my knight into the game. Bishop takes e3, a correct decision. Queen takes e3, knight f5, and now this is getting harder. Of course, he cannot take my bishop because queen h7 checkmate, but after g6, this position is now complicated. And it should be equal. I have a lot of pressure on g6, and practically speaking, it's easier to play white, but he is a pawn up still. And we were both pretty low on time. I think he got into time trouble faster than me, but at one point during the next 10 moves we were both playing with a minute on the clock. The tournament is of course with a 30-second increment, so it's not that critical, but it was tough. Rook e7, f3, which was a risky move, but I wanted to restrain his pieces and more importantly stop e4. Rook f to e8, a4, queen g5, rook e4. Now I'm threatening rook to g4, which is, well, a scary threat. Because let's say he plays a nothing move, rook to g4. Okay, rook to g4, and when he goes back, I can just take here. And queen takes, bishop takes, the pawn is pinned. So I would win. So after rook e4, he played h5, stopping rook g4, but weakening a few more squares. King f1. Now I know this is a weird move, but I want to get away from the g file and try to play for g4, because g4 could be scary. G4, and if he takes, then again rook to g4. But knight g3 check, bishop takes g3, queen takes g3, and now rook to e3, which is a meek move, but I need to do something. I didn't see how powerful knight g3 was. Queen to g5, king to f2, e4, which is a pawn sacrifice, but understandable, because with the pawn sacrifice he manages to equalize. So this is the move which shows the strength my opponent really has. Rook e4. Knight e5, it was a clearance sacrifice to give his knight an excellent square. Queen to d4, pinning the knight, threatening f4. Queen to f6, king to g1, again threatening f4 to dislodge the knight, but now g5. And now the position is pretty even, unless somebody does something crazy. Black either gives up the knight on f3, or I give up an exchange. Queen to f2. Knight g6, takes, queen d4 check. Queen to e5, and now we were both under a minute. I can't really allow him to take. That would be horrible for my pawn structure. Even though the knight wouldn't have the e5 anymore, if I, let's say, allow him to capture, then the knight would simply do this. I would have to defend passively and he would be better. So after queen e5, I played queen d3 to stop perpetual checks and to threaten here. So queen e1, king h2. I obviously have to trade the queens if I want to stop the perpetual. Queen h4, king g1, queen e1, king h2, and we agreed to a draw here, very low on time. I wasn't sure if in this position this endgame is even holdable for me. The knight is much better here, definitely much better, and it's easier to play with the knight. Has a permanent square here, and my bishop is basically out of targets once this happens. So my only chance would be in this position to play the move a5 if he doesn't, but he was too good. He would just go a5, and if he doesn't go a5, then probably white can play on, but if he goes a5, black is much better. So a draw. Coming back to the rest of the games, in round 5 I was psychologically already, I just wanted to go home. Basically after round 3 I wanted to go home, I wanted things to be over and I wanted to get some rest. I started going to bed late, I didn't prepare for my games seriously. I didn't want to seem like a coward and run away from the rest of the tournament, from the last 3 games. But I just didn't feel like chess, I didn't feel like anything. Okay, next game, I have the black pieces, and for some reason I played the Nimzo-Indian, which I've never played before. So I've experimented a lot with my openings. Played the Benoni, Nimzo-Indian, Semislav, something else in the last round as well. So he plays bishop d2, which is not common, but is fine. Castles, a3, bishop c3, bishop c3. Again, my opponent is very young and very good, much better than his rating. d5, e3, b6. This Queen's Indian setup is something I know well, and after rook c1 I go f5. So it's a fairly attacking Queen's Indian setup in which I basically claim that having a dark squared bishop would be useless for me in this pawn structure, and that his dark squared bishop is a horrible piece. Bishop to d3, bishop to a6, which I was proud of, but I really don't think it's a good move. Takes, takes. I wanted to get rid of his light squared bishop to increase the control over the light squares. Queen to d3, and now I started going badly wrong. I'm convinced that f4 is the correct way to play here. And after f4, if he goes f3, I'm not really concerned. I can just go knight g5. But instead I went knight b8, which now gives him enough time to solidify b4, knight c6, which is also a poor move, knight to e2, and now queen to g5, which is the last mistake I made. And after queen g5 I have nothing. I had a pretty fine position before knight e2, so I need to continue with f4. After queen g5 he just castles and it's equal. If somebody's better, it's him. The problem is he has this lovely square and he has this lovely square for his knight. So yeah, if I'm him, I'm playing something like rook to c2, knight c1, knight d3, knight e5, and f4, and equality at least. Knight e7, f3, chasing my knight away, knight takes c3. I have no other options. If I go back, then I'm just worse. After knight to f4. And yeah, I have no way to defend the pawn. So if I go back, knight f4, and this is indefensible. Except with the king, but that would be very risky. So knight c3, taking his horrible bishop. Strategically, this was a huge achievement for my opponent. This bishop is a dead piece on c3. Once I exchange it, white is better. f4, queen e7. A few imprecise moves from my opponent, but in this position, I started wasting a ton of time because he's threatening to just win. So takes on b6 and wins. If I take with the c pawn, he gets his rooks down. If I take with the a pawn, then he takes on c7 with check. So whatever I do, I'm just worse. So the only option was rook here. And what he should have done, he played knight g3, which doesn't have anything to do with the position. What he should have done is takes. Of course, my rook is pinned, I need to take here. And now simply rook to c6. And it's over, the game is over, white wins. get your knight to g3 later. I mean, I was really upset when he played knight to g3, and I wanted to say, just win the game with takes, and I thought I was losing. So this shows my mental state. From an equal position and then a good attacking position, I just messed it up with queen g5, and my opponent was strategically completely winning, positionally as well, and this position would be just overwhelming. No way to defend. There is no way to hold this. What he has to do is get his queen somewhere here, force my rook to a7, cement his rook, and then simply do this. And I have no answer to that. Once he gets his knight here and takes, for example, here, that's over. Instead he went knight g3, so giving me a bit more time, queen e8. Now if he takes, I can take with the c pawn, trade everything off, and it's probably equal. C takes b6, c takes b6, queen to a6, a very good move. And I now need to be careful, of course, threatening to take 3 times. If I take, he's still controlling c7. If he takes at some point, then I lose, at least I lose my a7 pawn. So knight to e7, preparing to, if rook c8, to take knight c8, which is disgusting. But now knight f1, another slow move. He should have just continued and made my pieces passive. But now after queen d7, I'm finally okay, and now the position is equal. I have to grovel for a draw, though, because his pieces are more active. But yeah, now it's just a draw with correct play. At one point I was better, and I had the space advantage on the king side, but it's not enough. Basically, his knight has this square, my knight has this square, and it should be equal. I need to exchange, and he went for this pawn endgame correctly, because there's nothing I can do. This is just a draw. Whatever we do, it's just a draw. The problem is that in this position, once I go h4, he doesn't have to take. If he takes, black is easily winning. If he just waits, then it's a draw. And here we agreed to a draw. Yeah, f4 doesn't work. I tried it. I tried and tried and tried, but it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. There's nothing I can do here. He is not in Zugzwang because he has this. If he moved away, then we are talking and I have something. But even then, I'm not sure. At least I have chances, but it's not clear. But he would just shuffle his king around. Okay, round 6, again, against a very, very good young opponent. So out of the 7 rounds, 6 rounds I played guys that were 15, 16, 14, 15, 16. Except in the first round, max is 10 or 11, I believe. Incredibly talented players. And the psychological pressure on me and their strength made me play like a coward, an unprepared coward, and an unprepared stupid coward. This game, having said that, is the only game I'm satisfied with in the whole tournament. Played against a 1600 rated opponent. We have the old Benoni, and now he went crazy with b5, which is just Benko Gambit ideas, but they don't really work. g6, e4, bishop takes f1, king takes f1, this is all normal. Unfortunately, I've been working on this setup for a while. The usual way to play is g3, king, g2, and then develop your pieces. I was preparing this line with f3, and after castles, bishop e3, knight bd7, king f2. And I've actually been discussing this position with my coach, and it's not hard to prove why this is worse than g3, king, g2. I actually enjoyed when I was preparing this position, and I got a good game here as well. So the point is, I have to stop c4, that's the only threat. I have to stop knight to d3, that's the second threat. And eventually I want to play f4, e5 and make progress. Here, of course, I have to take with the bishop. If I take with the rook, I hope you can spot rook takes a4, the knight is hanging because the b1 rook would be unprotected. Okay, now we are sort of fighting for the center here. I have my extra Benko Gambit pawn, and I would like to get my queenside pawns rolling. The problem is I can't do that unless I open things up. Knight a4, rook to b8, and now f4. In this position for him, it's probably best to just do nothing or go f6. To stop e5. He went f5, which is very risky. Now I'm better in the center on the queen side and on the king side. e5. He can't take because, well, that would be pretty much devastating after knight takes c5, or even better, bishop takes c5. So knight a8, and now rook c to c2, just defending everything. Rook to b4, g3, king to f7, king to f3. Now he played knight to c7. And my position is very good, and he doesn't have any useful plans in this position. I even have some sacrifice ideas. After knight to c7, I calculated for 15 to 20 minutes, and I'd calculated everything correctly. This position is winning for white, and it's not close to winning, it's completely winning. Why is that? Well, here is why. Knight takes c5, pawn takes c5, rook takes c5, and now he has to defend the knight. If he goes back with the knight, let's say he does this, then I simply go rook to c8, and I'm threatening this one, I'm threatening this one, I'm threatening bishop here, I'm threatening takes in some positions, and this is more than enough compensation for the piece, because firstly I have 3 pawns, secondly he is a piece down anyway, this bishop is not playing, and I've never checked this position with an engine, I just want to see what the evaluation is. Only +1, okay, +2 now. So +2, yeah, and this should be winning. So yeah, the other option he has is to defend the knight, and after he defends the knight, again, I can just double and try to win the knight, force it back, or I can continue with these aggressive pushes and then double, and this is over. And here's what happened. I took, after I'd calculated everything correctly, and went to the toilet. During my calculation, I'd also, of course, looked at bishop takes c5, and I concluded that it doesn't work. But I spent much more time on bishop takes c5 because I was calculating that first, and then I switched to rook takes c5. When I came back from the toilet, he still hadn't captured the knight. So I come back, the knight is still on c5, I sit down, he takes, I write down his move and take on c5 with the bishop without thinking. And when I took, he looked at me like I'm crazy. I looked at the bishop and wanted to throw up, and I knew that the game was lost. I don't know how this happened. This has never happened to me before. But I just took with the wrong piece without thinking. Probably because both were in my mind and I was not feeling well psychologically. This position is over. He plays rook to b7. And now I need to do stuff and play around his position. It's over, so I wanted to try and trick him with d6, but there's nothing there. E takes d6, e takes d6, knight to e6, d7, it's game over, rook to a8, I can resign. But I didn't give up, I wanted to save half a point at least. He wrongly traded off the rooks, which was a mistake. And after this endgame is very interesting. If you want, analyze this yourself. I was analyzing this endgame and concluded that after king c6, king d3, king b5, king c3, the position is actually a draw. However, after king takes e3, I think black can win. I think black can win if he doesn't waste time coming here with the king. I'm not sure though, and I don't want to turn the engine on here, and I want to use this for practice. I'm actually going to look at this endgame in one of the streams. But yeah, after king to c3, it's a draw. It's definitely a draw. My plan is to do this, and as soon as I trade off the pawns, he cannot win. The knight versus king is a draw. He has to spend 2 moves to take these 2 pawns, which is not easy. And now the problem is, if he moves the king, I advance with my king, winning a free move. If he moves the knight somewhere, I advance my king towards the queenside pawns, kingside pawns, and it's over. He played knight d8, and now this position is a draw. Here we agreed to a draw. There's just nothing he can do. If he tries defending, then I'm just going to start trading stuff off, and I have enough time either to win a pawn or to trade a pawn, and once I do, it's over. So a winning position in which I blundered into a loss and then managed to draw. The last round game, needless to say, I was feeling... I I remember talking to Lucia on the phone and saying I just wait to come home. I don't think I've ever said that during a chess tournament. Okay, and this game shows how distracted I was. So knight f6, knight f3, e6, g3, c5, bishop g2, d5, castles, knight c6, c4. This is a sort of semi-Tarrasch position, or basically a King's Indian position for white in reverse, usually reached from the reti or from g3, bishop g2. It's a position I've had on the board before. I played it in the Rabac Open this summer, and during the game I didn't realize that, which was horrible. I mean, I remember all of my games, and I could probably play out the whole game from Rabac from memory, but in this game I didn't even recall that I had this position on the board. In Rabac I took on d4, which is the best move, and I didn't know the theory back then, but I managed to play the best theoretical moves. I lost the game in the end, you can find it on the channel, but just because I was stupid, not in the opening. Here I played c takes d, because I had this weird idea. I'm sorry, after c4, c takes d. In Rabac I took d takes c, and here I took c takes d. Sorry, c takes d, knight takes d, and I found this move queen to b6, and I just couldn't see a downside. And this game I've looked at with two people, one international master and one FIDE master. So knight c6, improving my pawn structure. I was afraid of knight b5, but I don't think it works. Okay, so knight takes b takes, knight c3, bishop e7, queen to b3, rook to b8. This is a very committal move, and I'm basically wasting time to chase his queen away, to force him to do something that he doesn't want to do. If he takes my queen, I take with the a pawn, and he retreated queen c2, and now I messed things up. I need to castle. I just have to castle. After I castle, I'm perfectly fine. I played actively with bishop a6. I thought I was better, and objectively I am better if I castle. After bishop a6, he is better, because c d5, and I can't take with the c pawn. Maybe I can, but it's very complicated. Queen a4 check, something like knight d7, and it gets messy. My king is in the center, he's going to blow things open and probably win. Again, needless to say, another extremely talented young opponent. I think he is 13 years old, maybe 14. So I take with the e pawn. Rook to d1, he has to, well, get his rook into the game. I thought this was a mistake, though. I wanted him to play e4 here immediately, but it's not clear. Rook to d1 castles, e4 here, and now after castle, c4 is not good. So here's my calculation, which for once was correct. d4, knight a4, and d3. In this position, if he takes my queen, I win the rook, or the knight. No, I win the rook and the knight. What am I talking about? So knight b6, dc2, and he would have to move the knight. So queen to d2, queen to d4, and now I have a very dangerous passed pawn protected by a bishop, and it's very hard for white to play. Knight c3, now bishop b4, queen e1, now rook f to e8. And yeah, I have a lot of dynamic pressure on his position here. Queen to d7, everything is defended. f3, he has to stop knight g4. c5. And after c5, if I manage to play c4, then a protected passed pawn on d3 is game over. Queen f2. Queen f2, of course, threatens to win a7 if I go c5, which isn't such a big deal. Maybe I should have gone c5 without thinking, but I went rook e to c8. And now, as soon as my rook leaves the e file, I don't have that much pressure anymore. Rook a to c1, and now bishop to a5. Bishop to a5 prepares to go bishop to b6. My pawn on c5 is not hanging because I just take, and if queen takes, bishop b6 wins the queen. And here he played e5, and I blundered. The best move, of course, was just to take. Play knight d5, and he would have to take. So takes, queen takes. This doesn't lose a pawn again because takes, takes, queen takes, and bishop to b6 would again win the queen back. And I should be much better with this pawn here. I guess he takes and now has to defend. Probably I'm not better. What am I talking about? Huh. Okay, knight d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d5. I have to be honest, I haven't analyzed this game. It was just... I haven't analyzed this game in detail. I went over the critical points with the two guys I was looking at the game with, and we didn't get into this line, so I'm not sure. After queen takes d5... I'm sorry, after... No, I can't go bishop b6 now. Maybe I should take on a2. Maybe this is the way to go, and then threaten... Yeah, okay. Threaten bishop to b6. But he has rook to c1. d2. This is complicated. I'm going to calculate this later on. I don't want to use the engine here. But after e5, I miscalculated and played bishop takes. After bishop takes, my position is horrible. Because he can simply go pawn takes, solidifying his pawn structure. He doesn't have a weakness here. Opens up the b file, everything is blockaded. I would have to go here, and he's probably fine. I mean, I don't think I have anything. He took with the rook though, which gives me a lot more activity. Knight d5 now, wins the pawn for him, but gives me active play. Rook c5, knight e3. Rook c8, queen c8. I've given up a pawn after queen takes c3, but I have queen to c2. And now he has to be careful. I'm threatening a lot of things, among others, simply rook takes b2 and threatening checkmate. So he went queen to d2. Rook to b2, queen takes queen. I would love to take with the pawn here and win the game with d takes c2 and rook to b1. Unfortunately, I'm hanging checkmate. So rook takes and bishop to f1. Now, here's a funny thing that if worked would be great, and that's d2, bishop takes rook here, seemingly winning a rook, but bishop e2 saves the day. So I can't do that. I simply took on a2, trading pawns, hoping to prove that my active outside passed pawn was enough to win, and it was. But so this endgame, I know I've worked on it several times, and I managed to get an optimal position. So this is an equal number of pawns where black has an outside passed pawn. What I need to do is I need to keep the king cut off on the first rank. As soon as I check and play the move a2, it becomes harder to win. So I want to do this until I improve my king. So I improve my king. He doesn't have time to check me and win the f7 pawn, because then I just queen a3. Okay. In this position, it's important to note that this check, he would have to go back. He would have to go here, and after here, he would have to go here. And black would simply have to go back. And once this happens, we have a fairly similar position, and it's not an easy win. There are no easy tricks with getting the rook behind. Rook to a8, king to c4, just marching my king up the board. King to d1. The problem is now, if I check, he goes forward. He goes forward. And I don't think I'm winning this. So if he can even just save a pawn like this, and if he checks me, I go here, and if this, I just go here. And checks again, I go here. If he tries to march his king closer, I'm sorry. If he tries to do this, then I just check it away until it's no longer there, and I can basically check forever. So it's not easy to do that. So after king to c2, after king to d1, I did check, and after king to c2, I went back, wanted to provoke the king to b1. And that was a horrible decision. Now, after rook to b2 check, of course, he cannot go to c3, because after to c1, because after king c1, king to b3, and after check, I go here and I win with this. So he has to go to a1, but now there is no way to win. And I messed things up. I took on h2, and now this position is just a draw. I don't want to show it because another 10 moves was played, draw agreed. I'd like to show you where I went wrong. So the correct winning plan was just king to d3. And after king to d3, I'm threatening checkmate. If he checks me, then I go to e3. And now my king is covered from the checks, and he has no way to stop me from winning stuff. He would have to go back. And now I can just continue with check here, king here, and move my pawn to a2, and his king cannot approach. His king doesn't have a single square. And now I could simply start picking stuff up. So whatever he does here, let's say he checks me here, I can just go here, and I could get behind, and he doesn't have any good moves. He has to stay on this file, so has to go away. So let's say he goes here, and now I can start picking stuff up. If he tries to check me, then I go here, and he's basically tied down, and there's nothing he can do. I can even, well, here I could even cover the check. Can I cover the check? Yes, I can, because while he picks up this pawn, I win. So yeah, after king to c3, king to d1, king to d3 was game over, and this is an idea that I didn't consider. Well, I did consider, but... And I had enough time on the clock. There's no excuse for this one. So yeah, I'm so happy I got this over with. I'm embarrassed by these games. I played I played 1 win, 1 loss, 5 draws. And 5 draws against players on average rated 300 or 400 points less than me. So I lost 42 points. And now here I am. I took a break from chess. The first tournament is going to be in a month and 2 days, March 6th. And yeah, I have another 32 days to prepare, mostly psychologically, but also to work on endgames like this one. And I'm working a lot. I have 4 lessons with coaches per week. And I'm working on my own for at least 4 hours a day. And I'm most importantly working on the psychological aspect of my game. Sorry for the long video, I just couldn't cope with recording these videos for 7 consecutive days. Tomorrow, opening theory is starting on with a fast pace, 2 videos per day until the London system starts. And also streams 3 times a week. The first one is on Thursday. Yeah, thanks again for watching. Please check out the schedule in the first comment below. Thanks again whoever watched the first stream. I hope to see you guys on Thursday. And bye. Stay tuned for more chess.